Josh Hasten here, Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. It is Sunday, November 25th, 2018, the 17th of Kislev 5779 for those celebrating in the U.S. Thanksgiving weekend. Hope you enjoyed the turkey. Hope you had a great time over Thanksgiving, and the weekend continues. Of course, this is for my show tomorrow, Monday, the 26th. When you're listening to it, it will already be the 26th. Now, the biggest story in the news this week here in Israel was the fact that the Airbnb apartment renting platform decided it would delist over 200 properties in Judea and Samaria. Jewish-owned properties. Let's be clear about that. They are not delisting any Arab-owned properties. They're not delisting any properties in any other hotspots around the world. Totalitarian regimes which control countries around the world. You're still able to rent places, flats, as they say, apartments in those areas, but they've decided to discriminate against Jewish business owners in Judea and Samaria. So here joining us now on the program to discuss the situation with Airbnb is Oded Revivi, the chief foreign envoy of the Yesha Council. Those are the communities in Judea and Samaria and formerly Gaza. One day again, please God, will rebuild the Jewish communities of Gush Katif and Gaza. He's also the mayor of Efrat. I'm joining him here from the beautiful community of Efrat. Mr. Mayor, thanks for joining us here on Israel Uncensored.
Thank you for inviting me.
So what is the latest situation in regard to the whole Airbnb story? We know that the company last week announced that it would in fact delist 200 properties throughout Yesha, Judea, and Samaria. Do you know at this point, have they already delisted those properties? And where do things stand right now here on Sunday?
Well, I don't know if... we do know that they have delisted. What we don't know is yet what is their reaction to the reaction that their decision made. Basically, what we do know is that there are quite a few lawsuits which either have been already submitted or are in the process of being submitted. There are also some very warm-hearted initiatives of private individuals or organizations who are encouraging tourists to come to Judea and Samaria and to see what Airbnb are trying to cut down off their customers or potential customers. And I think the major thing which I fail to understand, even though it's quite obvious, is at the end of the day, the idea behind Airbnb, as I see it, besides being a financial initiative, it's also a social initiative where it wants to get people to meet one another together in the environment where the people live. If you're going to tour a country, what's more authentic than to come into the neighborhoods where people actually live, see the challenges they have, the desires they have, the infrastructure that they're enjoying or lacking. And by eliminating this whole area of Judea and Samaria, basically Airbnb are saying we do not want to see any type of normality in this region.
Do you think, and I've seen an initiative that you were part of, a video that you put out with the mayor of Jerusalem, Nir Barkat, who is now stepping down, is moving into the Knesset, and as well as our mayor in Gush Etzion, Shlomo Ne'eman, and others, a video actually encouraging people, specifically at this time, to rent in Judea and Samaria. Are we already seeing the fruits of that initiative and other initiatives encouraging people to come to Judea and Samaria? Is it already happening now on the ground? In other words, has this decision by Airbnb already backfired? And if not already, do you believe this is going to backfire here in the near future?
I don't know to give you a clear answer that it's already backfired, but I do know that the publicity and the amount of people who are going to encourage people to actually come to hire properties in Judea and Samaria is growing as we speak. There are delegations who are intending to come and give a whole video publicity as to the available sites that there are in Judea and Samaria, what the customers of Airbnb are going to miss out on. And at the end of the day, I don't think that the business owners are going to suffer from the sanction that Airbnb are trying to strike.
Now, I had actually a debate the other day with a fellow Israeli, and this whole Airbnb thing, excuse me, by the way, I find this to be anti-Semitic. This is discrimination against Jews, and Jews only, from a specific geographical location here in Israel. That's my opinion. I believe this is anti-Semitic. Now, I had a debate against an Israeli the other day who said, no, this isn't anti-Semitic. This isn't against Jews. This isn't against Israel per se. It's against, in his words, the settlers. It's against Israel's policy, Israel's so-called occupation, which I don't agree with at all. But that's what he was saying. How would you respond to somebody who claims, no, this isn't anti-Semitic. This is just going along with the fact that Israel hasn't officially annexed these areas, going along with the, international community of the UN, which takes Israel to task time and time again over Judea and Samaria. How would you respond to somebody who claims, which I disagree with, that no, this isn't anti-Semitic, this is a kosher so-called boycott?
I'm holding in my hand a list of different areas in the world where Airbnb are actually publishing properties, despite the complexity of the political situation in those places, to put it mildly. If not occupation, if not very dark regimes that we don't want to be part of. And I don't want to list them in order not to give them publicity, but you're absolutely right, Josh. This is an anti-Semitic campaign. It has nothing to do with the political situation in Judea and Samaria. It has to do with a desire to try and eliminate people seeing the reality in this region. And I think what is more important at the end of the day is when we look at the Airbnb initiative is the fact that we understand that it is focused against the state of Israel. Because there's no other way to explain it why Airbnb will publish properties in other parts of the world, yet decide not to publish properties in Judea and Samaria. And I fail to see, even if there is a complexity in the political situation here, what does that have to do a difference to Airbnb? Because at the end of the day, we do realize that there are people living here, people who come to see how people live here, and Airbnb should provide that platform.
And I'll add to that, Airbnb, what essentially they have done is they have joined the BDS movement, the Boycott, Divest, and Sanction movement against the State of Israel. And as our Minister Gilad Erdan, Public Diplomacy Minister, last week said, BDS is actually, BDS and terrorism are two sides of the same coin. In other words, that is the goal of BDS. It isn't about these so-called settlements. It isn't about these areas which Israel retook in a defensive war of survival in 1967. Keep in mind that Fatah was founded with the intent of destroying the state of Israel 3 years before that. This is this is another form of terror, this BDS. It's the same goal. The goal is the destruction of the state of Israel. And that's really why this is such a serious move by that company. Would you agree with that?
I couldn't agree more. I think you're putting it in the right words. And you know what? At the end of the day, I think we're giving them way too much attention. Their threat is not a financial threat against the state of Israel because they can't defeat the attractions that there are here, the interest that there is in the business initiatives, the innovation that there is in this country. But they are building an atmosphere which the only way that we can combat that atmosphere is by creating a contradicting wave of people showing more and more interest, coming more into here, doing more business with Israel. And I hope that your show will actually promote that. Will people understand that with Airbnb or without Airbnb, Israel is here, the Jews are carrying on living in Judea and Samaria, and let's see how we can support them.
So last question then, what is the best way, if in fact Airbnb goes ahead and they totally delist all the properties, as you said, it looks like they're starting to do so, what is the best way for those who want to support Judea and Samaria? How do they find these properties? Is there a list perhaps of companies in Judea and Samaria? I know my friend Gedalia Blum has what's called the Orange Pages, Katom, which they list businesses in Judea and Samaria. I'm not sure all of those properties are included there, those who were on Airbnb. What's an alternative for those who want to come experience life in Judea and Samaria, rent an apartment here for a weekend, take a holiday, as they say, get out here, see these beautiful views and beautiful communities and beautiful sites that we have to offer, tourism sites and whatnot? What's the best step ahead to really stick it to Airbnb on one hand, but on the other hand, just to get people out here to actually see the beauty of this place and see what they're missing if they haven't already done so. Again, I believe Airbnb it's just going to backfire. So how can we make that happen?
Well, with the internet that we have today, we know that at any given time you can use more than one tool to find the information that you want. Airbnb is not the only tool that with that you can find properties and holiday resorts in Judea and Samaria. The Yesha Council, which is the umbrella organization for all the Jews living in Judea and Samaria, all the different cities, towns, and regional councils, is going to put out an official list with all the businesses. And I'm sure that you will hear about it, Josh, and you'll be able to publish it through your program. Just look and you'll find all these properties that are published in different platforms, which are easy to find.
So check out all the listings for apartment rentals and every other opportunity, all the other opportunities, rather, to come to Judea and Samaria. I know Airbnb is now blacklisted. I know the UN, actually, in the news today, is talking about how they're going to come out perhaps this spring with another list, also trying to blacklist communities in Judea and Samaria, BDS them. Ironically, a lot of Arabs have spoken out against these types of initiatives because they're the first ones to get hurt. We've talked about it on the show before. They're the first ones to get hurt by the BDS. So Airbnb, it's going to be a complete fail. And I believe, and I'm seeing it already, I'm seeing an enthusiasm by people here in Israel and abroad wanting to support Judea and Samaria, wanting to come out to our communities more and more now as a result of these haters. And I agree this is an anti-Semitic attack against a specific group of people, the Jews living in certain areas of the country. So let's hear good things out of all of this. Let's hope it backfires on them very, very soon. Oded Revivi, Chief Foreign Envoy for the Yesha Council, the communities representing Judea, Samaria, and, please God, once again, Gaza in the near future, also the mayor of Efrat. I'm here in his beautiful office with wonderful views overlooking the Judean mountains here. Come out to Judea and Samaria. I want to thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, and I hope we succeed.
Yeah, I am confident we will. We're going to take a short break, just getting started here on Israel Uncensored on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. When we come back, more from the news, everything going on here in the state of Israel. My name is Joshua Hasten. This is Israel Uncensored. Get in touch with me during the week. Josh at thelandofisrael.com, on Facebook, Joshua Hasten, and on Twitter at Josh Hasten. Short break. We'll be right back.
Extinction, says Carl Sagan, is the rule. Survival is the exception. And I can tell you as a graduate of a geology department and a teller of the Jewish story that this is not a small fact. I'm Rav Mike Foyer, and this is the Jewish Story.
Join Rav Mike Foyer for the best Jewish history podcast, The Jewish Story, on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.
And we are back. Josh Hasten here, Israel Uncensored, on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com. It is the 25th of November, 2018, the 17th of Kislev 5779. Thanks again to Oded Revivi, Mayor of Efrat and the Chief Foreign Envoy for the Yesha Council, representing communities in Judea and Samaria, and at one point, Gaza, hopefully soon again. If you missed any of that interview, go back and check it out. Talking about the latest with the Airbnb situation. And as I mentioned during the interview, and reported by the Jerusalem Post today, the United Nations is likely to publish its so-called settlement blacklist prior to its 40th session, expected to be scheduled for March 2019, a UN official told the Jerusalem Post. The Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, is in the midst of creating a database of companies doing business in Judea and Samaria and in East Jerusalem, the Golan Heights, and all those areas which Israel reclaimed, the heartland which Israel reclaimed after the defensive war in 1967. So here you have Airbnb targeting specifically apartments in Judea and Samaria, and now you have the UN also targeting Jewish businesses. That's what this is all about. Specifically Jewish businesses. In other words, whether you're Airbnb or the United Nations, that's right. The goal here is to try to hurt Jews who live in Judea. and Samaria as well. There are some bastions of light and good. For example, on Wednesday, the Beverly Hills City Council passed a resolution condemning the decision by Airbnb to boycott Judea and Samaria. Mayor Julian Gold said, "We find the actions of Airbnb deplorable. On behalf of our residents, this unanimous resolution reflects the City Council's ongoing commitment to Israel and to exposing hatred anywhere it exists." And the mayor added the following: "Airbnb is not welcome in Beverly Hills as long as its policies are based on anti-Jewish double standards." So thank you to the city of Beverly Hills, California, for standing on the side of what's good and what's moral and what's right in the world and against Airbnb. And we'll have to see what happens in regard to this UN blacklist. Putting Jews on a list. Where have we heard that before? Putting Jews and only Jews on a specific list, in this case because of their geography, trying to hurt businesses in Judea and Samaria. And as I said before, just like the Airbnb decision, this UN list is just going to help. We're going to take that list, that blacklist, and specifically buy products. And I encourage everyone out there to do the same. Buy products from Judea and Samaria. Support the businesses in Judea and Samaria just because. Just spite the UN, and because it's the right thing to do. And you're going to get beautiful, wonderful products, whatever it is, if it's wine or honey or anything else that's produced in Judea and Samaria. The haters out there are trying to starve. This is, I believe you can go to this point. It's justified to say, when you try to hurt someone's business, you're trying to starve them out. You're trying to starve their family. So here you have the UN and Airbnb literally trying to starve Jewish families, make Jewish children starve, make it so their families cannot earn a living. That's what these lists are trying to do. So we need to do the exact opposite. We need to continue to support more and more businesses in Judea, Samaria, the Golan, the Jordan Valley, Jerusalem, wherever it is, and all over Israel. We really need to do the exact opposite of what they're trying to do and really stick it to them. That's my opinion. At the same time, here's another example of an attempt to boycott Judea and Samaria. And what makes this one even worse, perhaps, in my opinion, is that you have an Israeli who is encouraging this group to boycott Judea and Samaria. I'm talking about the European Association of Social Anthropologists. They ratified a motion to boycott Israeli academic institutions. We're talking about places like Orot College in Elkanah, Herzog College, Alon Shvut, Ariel University. The anthropologists, they took a vote and decided they will not have anything to do with any university or college or whatnot in Judea and Samaria. But this is the sick part of all of this. In September, the head of the Israeli Anthropological Association, Professor Nir Avieli, Avieli, Nir Avieli, sent a letter written on behalf of the association encouraging the Europeans to vote in favor of the motion. An Israeli here is encouraging the European anthropologists to boycott our universities in Judea and Samaria. That's why this might even be more repulsive than the Airbnb. Airbnb is located in San Francisco. That's where their headquarters are. But here you have an Israeli professor encouraging the Europeans to boycott our own universities. Matan Peleg, this is reported in the J Post, CEO of Im Tirtzu, a great organization, called the Israeli Anthropological Association support of this boycott a disgrace. And he's right. It's an absolute disgrace while the world is trying to BDS us for people here from within the country to support it. And I don't know how many people in Israel support BDSing our country. Number one, it doesn't only hurt the Jews, but it hurts all these Arabs who attend the universities in Judea and Samaria. Just go to Ariel University and see how many devout Muslims go to college there. So who are you trying to hurt? You say you're on the side of the Arabs, you're against Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria because they disturb the Arab population, and then you go carry out a BDS, and who gets hurt? The Arab students or the Arab businesses. This isn't about helping or making life better for Arabs. This is about ripping on Jews whose positions you don't agree with. And we've seen this before, namely the pullout and the destruction of the communities of Gush Katif. Not to help the Arabs, not to enhance the Arabs' lives down there, because now they're living under Hamas. You didn't do anything good there. Instead, you're trying to stick it to the Jews, the right-wingers, if you want to call them that, the settler people. You're trying to stick it to them. And who are you hurting? You're ending up hurting the Arabs even more than the Jews. You hurt the Jews plenty, but even more than the Jews. So, disgrace, this Professor Nir Avieli from the Israeli Anthropological Association, IAA. Absolute disgrace. Switching gears here, front page of today's Jerusalem Post. Nothing new here, really, but just more of the same. The Iranian President Hassan Rouhani saying that Israel is a cancerous growth in the Middle East. More hate rhetoric towards Israel coming from Tehran. Rouhani also used this opportunity in his speech he gave the other day to slam both Israel and the United States. No real shocker here, no real surprise. Slamming the U.S. relocation of the embassy to Jerusalem, and of course talking about how Iran is going to win against Zionism and all this other anti-Israel hate. Nothing new, but again, while the UN is busy putting Jewish businesses in Judea and Samaria on some kind of blacklist, Iran here threatens to annihilate the Jewish state, threatens the United States, and crickets when it comes to this type of hate rhetoric from a UN, a UN member nation. Nothing new under the sun. And speaking of anti-Semitism, by the way, people need to remember, and Barbara Sofer in the Jerusalem Post weekend section, the magazine, wrote a great column. She was describing what people in the South have been going through with the rocket attacks. And I was down there with my friends from the Judean Roundtable this past week. We got a security briefing on the situation down there. Got to visit families and the kids who were under fire when Hamas 2 weeks ago fired 460 rockets. So this is all a sidebar. Go ahead and check out on my Facebook page the Judean Roundtable, the behind-the-scenes security briefing we got down south. It's pretty amazing, and the resolve of the people down there. But I was saying that Barbara Sofer wrote that, ironically, very sadly, that when an attack happens outside of Israel, an anti-Semitic attack like the horrible massacre in Pittsburgh, that's classified as anti-Semitism. But when Hamas fires 460 rockets, because it happens in Israel, it doesn't count. It's not anti-Semitism. It's anti-Israel, whatever. But they won't use the same terminology. And when I say they, I'm talking about the mainstream media and the elites and all the rest. They will not describe an attack against Jews when Jewish children, Jewish families have to run for cover with 15 seconds to spare before a rocket hits, from carried out by a tyrannical, genocidal terror organization against Israel. Somehow that is not dubbed anti-Semitism. That's the irony of it. So great job, Barbara Sofer. This reported by Times of Israel and news agencies. We're talking about anti-Semitism now. A Wisconsin school board has said that a group of students who were taking a picture on some local Wisconsin small town high school. They were photographed outside the courthouse on their way to prom, all giving the Heil Hitler, saluting. Apparently that is freedom of speech, according to the local legal officials in that community. It's called the Baraboo School District in Wisconsin. And I have the picture here in front of me from the Times of Israel. You see these guys. It's so funny. We're going to do a Heil Hitler. Apparently the guy who took the picture, one of the parents, said everyone wave goodbye, and instead they decided to do the Heil Hitler, the salute. But you have in the top right corner, you have one kid who is on the side of what appears to be is on the side of what's good in the world and decides he is not going to salute. He doesn't by the expression on his face, he doesn't find this funny at all. So there is still some good out there in the world. Some who do not subscribe to peer pressure or the mob mentality. And he doesn't give the salute. And I posted on Facebook also, reminds me of that picture of a Nazi rally held at some point during World War II, where you have a group of German citizens subscribing to the Nazi point of view and saluting, giving the Heil Hitler, giving the Nazi salute, and you have that one guy standing in the middle of the crowd who decides he is not going to be a part of it. He's not going to do it. That's what this picture reminded me of. Again, I'm not saying today is 1939 or 1941 or what have you, but with the rise in anti-Semitism, with what happened in Pittsburgh and all the other attacks, and it seems like it's nearly daily. But again, this has been going on for 3,000 years, this anti-Semitism, over 3,000 years. At least you have, let's take the good from this, at least you have that one kid in the top right corner of this picture. You can go find it online, this picture from Wisconsin. That one kid decides he's not going to have anything to do with it and doesn't find it funny that his classmates are giving what looks like a Nazi salute. One more story here on anti-Semitism, this from Argentina. Soccer fans in Argentina chanted about killing the Jews to make soap during a match between two teams down there. One of the teams historically associated with the Jewish community. And then the visitors, the other team, decided to riot when their team lost. Atlanta, that's the name of the professional Argentinian team founded in a Jewish neighborhood. They played a team called the All Boys, and when the Atlanta people beat the All Boys 3-2, there were riots and chants of "Let's kill the Jews to make soap." So that's in Argentina. You have Wisconsin, Argentina. You have here in Israel the anti-Semitism. People, it's not going anywhere. It's since the days when the Jews were in Egypt and they decided to throw the Jewish male babies into the Nile and put the Jews into hard forced labor, made them slaves. Those were the beginnings of anti-Semitism. You can even go back further than that, back to the times of Abraham and the anti-Semitism he dealt with when he decided to worship the one and only true God. So this has been going on for a long, long time, but we need to be vigilant, whether you're in Israel, whether you're outside of Israel, to this hate, because it's not going anywhere. Let's face the facts. And that's why I always tell people this is the place to be, Israel, because at least you have, putting it mildly, at least you have a state, a Jewish state, and a Jewish army for the first time in 2,000 years defending Israelis, defending Jews all over the country and all over the world if necessary. So thank God for the state of Israel. And let's finish with some good news for this week. Just got this now from Tova Lazaroff at the J Post. This is their headline here, 3 former West Bank outposts on Israel's strategic building list. Now, we're talking about a list here that the government puts out in order to prioritize growth and development and strengthening certain communities. The government puts this list out. So, reported here today that 3 former neighborhoods have now been deemed worthy to be on this national priority list for construction and expansion. And those communities include Migron, which is just outside of Jerusalem, Shvut Rachel, and Kerem Re'im, all communities in Judea and Samaria. Minister Yuval Gallant, the housing construction minister, released the names of these communities. So he said that the inclusion of these communities on the list, quote, is a clear statement by the government. It will continue to develop and strengthen the communities in Judea and Samaria. So these communities, please God, will grow and thrive. Migron, of course, these are residents who were thrown out of their original homes just about 1.5 kilometers away from where they are now, living in a caravan community just outside the Psagot winery near Kochav Yaakov, just north of the Piskat Ze'ev neighborhood of Jerusalem. So hopefully this will lead to growth and expansion and development and more people moving in and resources and everything they need to continue to grow and to develop on the beautiful rolling hills of Judea and Samaria. That's it for this week. Another edition of Israel Uncensored here. My name is Josh Hasten. Get in touch with me during the week. Josh at thelandofisrael.com. On Facebook, it's Joshua Hasten. And on Twitter, at Josh Hasten. For the 25th here, recording on Sunday, 25th of November. You're hearing it on the 26th or after the 26th, 2018. Most importantly, between now and when we speak again, please God, next week, everyone out there, everybody, the wonderful world of ours, be safe. Shalom, shalom from another beautiful day here in the land of Israel.
The question is, why are the Jews there in the first place? The Jewish people have been yearning to return to their ancient homeland for a long time.
The Yishai Fleischer Show, the voice of a new generation of pro-Israel activists.
And there's only two kinds of minorities in the Middle East, armed or unarmed.
Inspiring minds to think differently.
That jihadism doesn't just attack Jews. It attacks Christians, and it mostly attacks Muslims.
Inspiration, spirituality, and politics.
So first and foremost, this country is here to defend Jewish people and to live in its ancestral homeland.
Listen to the Yishai Fleischer Show every week on the Land of Israel Network at thelandofisrael.com.